We are here to talk to some of our incredibly fast-growing companies. We actually have, even though we have an empty chair, we're talking about someone that just got caught up outside. But we have three CEOs of three amazing companies. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you about their company, and let's just have a chat about what's going on here in Atlanta. George, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm George Azih. I'm the founder and CEO of Lease. Lease provides lease accounting software to companies out there to help them manage their leases. It's a compliance play essentially, and we're based here in Atlanta. So for those of you that have leases, please go to leasequery.com and we'll help you. I know that was a cheap play, but we'll help you manage your leases.
It matters.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Hey, great to be here. I'm Marc Ginsberg. I'm the CEO of CallRail. Unlike George, I actually just started about 2 months ago at CallRail. Company's been around for a little over 10 years, and we're on a mission to help about 180,000 businesses today get better ROI on their marketing investment that they make to try to grow their businesses, particularly understanding how the dollars they spend drive leads and phone calls into their call centers or onto their cell phone. I think you just joined us, Garrett.
Garrett, who are you and what's your company?
You're here.
The city of Atlanta never ceases to
Spoiled by Atlanta traffic.
45 minutes to get from Buckhead to Midtown, so...
But if this was LA, it'd be 2 hours.
You could have taken MARTA.
If it was LA, it'd be 2 hours.
It was LA, you would have never made it.
Exactly.
But it's classic economic development. They were filming a movie in my neighborhood.
perfect.
I could not get out. Like, they've shut down every single street.
What neighborhood?
I'm over by the duck pond in Buckhead.
Yeah.
Okay, they're filming a movie in my house literally as we speak.
Are you in that area?
I'm in West Buckhead.
Okay. I was just like, this is perfect timing. But so Garrett Langley, CEO and founder of a company called Flock Safety, based here in Atlanta. We are on a mission to eliminate crime. We support just over 1,400 cities in that mission, and started the company about 4 years ago. And fun fact, 2.5% of all arrests today will be because of our devices.
Nice.
And so that ranges from small petty crime, like my car got stolen a couple months ago, that person got arrested, to quite serious things like homicides, Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts. So super
I have
fun
to
business.
say, Garrett and I have never met, but I
Yeah.
use your company as an example all the time. Like, what an amazing mission to eliminate crime. It's amazing.
It's a lot of fun. It is like one of the easiest jobs to get energy from, because I get text messages from our customers who are typically chiefs of police or city councils just saying thank you. And I'm sure you see it. I love your restaurant. And like, I imagine people say like, thank you for creating a place that I like to go eat at and enjoy time with my family and friends. And like, it's fun to be an entrepreneur when your customers love you.
I have this vision of all your employees coming in every day with capes on.
Batman, yes. It is our favorite Slack channel. It's like hashtag solved, and it's just all the success stories
Is there
of
a
our
light
customers.
somewhere in the city that shines
Yeah.
when you're supposed to? I just want to be clear.
We got a lot of work to do in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do in Atlanta, that's
Okay.
for sure.
So let's just start out. We're here at Venture Atlanta. Incredible time for innovation here in Atlanta. So maybe to start with the three of you, why did it work in terms of growing your company in Atlanta? What was that X factor that helped all of you? And George, to start with you on that.
Well, I think we were just talking about this. The Atlanta is home to about 8 universities that are just a talent pool. Georgia Tech, Georgia State. I'll add Athens in there, UGA, which is my alma mater.
I'm a Gator.
Oh God. Oh, see, I knew there was something I don't like about this guy. No, I'm just kidding. But you have Morehouse, you have Spelman, you have Georgia State, you have Georgia Tech. I mean, these are incredible schools that are in our city, right? So as far as talent is concerned, you just can't beat it. The challenges we have, I think, is when you get to that higher echelon, as in the C-level executives, you have the bigger companies, right? But now Atlanta is starting to mature in the marketplace, in that you have other companies that have made it, that now creates this pool of C-level execs that we can choose from.
Right.
5 years ago, it just wasn't that way. So because of the maturity of the market, Atlanta has, what's the number? It's 85% of all credit card transactions go through the state of Georgia. That's huge. right? And then you count our airport, where literally 90% of the rest of the planet, not the rest of the United States, but the rest of the planet is accessible via direct flight from Atlanta.
Right.
I mean, you can literally, I remember when I was still chasing deals, I visited 10 cities in 1 week. 10 cities in 1 week. Only because I started out in Atlanta.
Wow.
Right? So I mean, that's Atlanta's story.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Marc, how about you? I know you're new to Atlanta, but
This is actually my third time moving to Atlanta in my life. Twice for tech, actually. I loved your answer. I think it really resonates because CallRail was actually founded by a group of students from coming out of Georgia Tech. And so really that incubation. But when I came here, my first time I came here was with Deloitte, and I was working with some of the bigger companies like Delta Airlines. The second time I came to help start a company called Cardlytics back in 2014. 2013 was Atlanta Tech Village founding, which was an amazing time because I think back then, I could probably think of 2 or 3 companies, one of which was Cabbage. I was just at Amex and we just bought them. But I feel like we just kept always coming in second place to Cabbage and all these tech awards. I was like, there's got to be other companies here that are, right? And there just weren't that many. And now to come back, 10 years later, 12 years later, and to see how many companies and the amount of talent and the amount of investment that's gone into Atlanta is pretty amazing, truly, because it really was a Fortune 500 city for all the reasons you named. Great access to talent, great access to airports, amazing weather, frankly. It's been great compared to New Jersey, where I moved from. And to see this influx of investment and just, the other thing I'd say about Atlanta, I lived in California for a long time and did some work in tech. I lived in New York, and it felt very competitive in those towns. And here it feels much more like a team sport. It feels like there's a lot of collaboration. I know that you and our former founder are good friends and went out to dinner recently, and he just told me that Andy, our founder, gave him some advice that he took to heart, and I've taken a lot. I took some learnings from both your companies, even in the short amount of time here, and applied it to our company, whether it's having a really strong mission statement. We were just talking about how they have accountants in all of their business, and I learned a lot from that because you're selling to accountants, bring in accountants. And it just feels like everyone's rooting for each other.
And that's what Dwayne and I were just talking about earlier about the collaborative spirit here. Absolutely. So Garrett, how about you, the X factor for?
I think the difference for me about Atlanta is that most of the companies that I think do exceptionally well wouldn't have been started in somewhere else. And so and what we go there is, I think Atlanta represents a larger swath of America than a place like San Francisco or a place like Manhattan. And so I think about your company, and I'm like, would someone who lives in Manhattan start that? Like, I don't know, probably not. Or would they have as much success? Like, I don't think so. And same for me. It's like, we want to sell hardware to neighborhoods and cities. That's like 3 X's for your average venture capitalist. But in Atlanta, people are like, oh, I live in a neighborhood. Yeah, I know what those are. You pitch that concept to someone in Manhattan, they're just like, huh. Well, my place upstate, and it's like, no, I'm talking about like your actual home, man. I want to help your own neighborhood be safe. So that for me has been the most unique thing, is like whether it's a company like CallRail, where I'm like, man, I barely understood that business, but like, well, it makes a lot of sense. Like, and to start in Atlanta, I think also makes sense too.
Well, it's kind of interesting. That's one of the things with even why movies are filming here as well too. It's, you could be in a neighborhood setting, you could be in a city setting. We could, we get so much stuff as well. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about recruiting and talent for a little bit. We've been fielding a lot of conversations with CHROs all over the network. It's a really, really competitive environment right now. So we know we have an exemplary higher ed system that's producing some of the top talent in the world, but how is recruiting and retention and all of that going for you all right now?
I think it's the case across the country. It is the most challenging talent market I've ever seen. And I think for our companies, I think we're all close to the same scale. We've got about 400 people. We've got about 120 open roles. We were averaging about a 30-day placement for most of this year until about 90 days ago, and it's just plummeted, gone up. And I don't think it's because our recruiting team is not working as hard. It's just every candidate we're talking to is getting multiple offers. Every candidate we're talking to is getting a 20%, a pretty significant uptick in their compensation. And so it's challenging, but I think for us, what we've noticed is, at least being here in Atlanta, is that like having a lower cost of living, like having a more flexible remote versus using an office. Now our office is in Midtown, it's in West Midtown. But I think that's a huge recruiting tool, right? Is like, it's not expensive for me to have that space. I can have it as an option for my employees. My head of finance is in Manhattan, and she's like, wait a second, how much is our lease? It's so cheap compared to what she's used to seeing that we almost look at it as just like it's a benefit. That if someone who's in their 20s or early 30s and doesn't want to work from home, they can come into a beautiful office, but they can also work, their living accommodations are still twice as big, 3 times as big as their peers in other cities.
Right.
Yeah, I think that for us, I completely agree. We literally signed a lease for 58,000 square feet in November 2020. So you can imagine what happened, November 2019.
Okay.
So then March comes around 2020 and we still haven't utilized this building. However, you look at it and we're only paying $130,000 a month. So it's not much. It's not. I mean, if we were in San Francisco, I'm shutting that thing down. We're canceling the lease. Only 5 people go into the office, and because of COVID, what it's allowed us to do is we can expand our net of people to bring to come to work for us, right? Because everyone is working remotely now. That's just the nature of the world right now. So we've hired people from Nebraska. We've hired people from Utah. We've hired. We've hired. We're just talking about this. We've hired, I believe, 150 people this year alone, right? But then you should think about it. That shows that we also have a lot of churn, right? This is the most time we've had. This is the most churn we've ever had in our company's history. And the reason I believe is people are working from home, and because they're working from home, their job is now commoditized in a way, right? Before, you'll jump for an extra, $5,000, right? Before you would think about it. Well, you know what? I'm sure they're offering me a little more over here, but I like going to lunch with Susan every day. I like the fact that my manager's always coming around and talking to me. You just don't have that anymore, and so people just think it's now essentially a monetary transaction. The workplace says, and so the challenge that we have now is we have to create a culture, a remote culture. So I'm trying to talk to CEOs that were remote prior to the pandemic, right, and see how they handled culture, right? Because now, that's what we are, right? And we have to be, because people. I mean, America is not going back. America has fundamentally changed the workplace. COVID has changed the way we work in this country.
Right. I think it's really well said. And we've had a lot of conversations around. Like, it is, when you're sitting in your living room, I can write code for Google or Amazon or CallRail, right, or Lease Query. And how do you create a culture and an environment and an experience for those employees that's really going to differentiate? I think it starts with a mission and having a really strong mission, and people that are committed to making life easier for accountants, for eliminating crime. Sorry about, it's a tough company. You guys are both great.
Very unsexy. Lease accounting.
But I think it's like tying people to that mission and then really creating bonds across the team. And doing that virtually is difficult, but it's something we're really focused on. It's creating groups within. We have a group focused on gay, lesbian community. We have a group focused on Black, Brown community. We have a group responsible for women. It's like creating these groups inside the organization that give you deeper bonds than just the overall mission of what we want to do. And we just did a great panel for Hispanic Heritage Month, where some of our Hispanic employees talked about what living in America as a Hispanic person meant to them, and like how one of the things that was super interesting was how Cinco de Mayo, like what that really means.
Right.
Like it turns out it's not just $5 margaritas, right? And what that means to a group of folks. And I think those bonds and those deeper connections help you to attract great talent and the talent that wants to be there and be part of the community.
And you guys were talking a lot about culture and bonds and connections. Of course, Dwayne leading, their leading brand comms, also leads our Choose ATL efforts, which is that so much of that, Dwayne, right, is about culture for Atlanta. It's not just about airports and structure. It's about culture as well too.
Absolutely.
So one thing, and I want to build on something you mentioned earlier, George, about kind of the maturing of our innovation economy, or innovation ecosystem, and how now there's other executives in growth companies, which I think is a big difference. If we go 5 years from now, I mean, to even have 3 of you at the scale of your companies would not have, be at our big corporates and a lot of early stage startups. Now we're just seeing so many. So how do you take, maybe Garrett, we'll start with you on this. What do you view your role as beyond your company and helping grow other entrepreneurs based on the scale of your companies now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying, at least at my board, that pretty much like every 12 to 18 months, my entire executive team will turn over. And it's not because they're not good. They're actually exceptional leaders. It's just someone who can run a 50-person team might not be able to run a 250-person team.
Yeah.
And in 12 months, that's going to be the job. And I think if we, to our earlier point about collaboration, so I have a bunch of leaders who are awesome at that 50 to 150 person sized company. Eventually, I hate to admit it, they're going to get bored at Flock.
Right.
And the most successful thing for both them and me in Atlanta is if that Series A company goes ooh, I bet you I could grab that person and put them in a great role.
Yeah.
And it'll hurt because I would hate to lose them. But I tell most of the leaders I bring on board, if I can get 2 really good years out of you, that's an awesome relationship. If you make it 4, we're setting records. And if you stay here longer, then I think we'll have a great time. But my main goal as your, manager and person recruiting you is can I get you to the next level of your career?
Yeah.
And I think if you have that kind of open dialogue from the get-go, it becomes much easier, 2 years in to say hey, you're just I got to bring in someone who's seen this next stage.
Right.
But I think Tope just mentioned it earlier that that is the biggest difference. Is when I started Flock 4 years ago, there was no executive talent that could manage a 100, 200 million ARR and up business, and now they're in Atlanta,
right,
or they're willing to move to Atlanta,
right,
and that's very different than it was just 4 years ago.
Yeah. Right. Marc.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I mean, just we've grown a lot of great leaders. I mean, the president of Lease was a partner of mine at Cardlytics, right? And now here we are, working in senior roles at bigger companies than when we were there, because we saw it. We were able to take it from that 30, 40, 50 million up to the 200 million when we both left. And so we're 2 examples of that, where we've had that experience of being able to grow an organization. There's 0 to 1 and 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. So I think it's well said, and I think the network that I think you guys do a great job of building. I just went to a dinner with a bunch of the CEOs. We sat next to each other. Where we're able to cross-pollinate that talent and bring new ideas. And you're starting to see a lot of CEOs. You're seeing funds pop up in the Southeast, where executives that have done well are saying, I want to put some money in to help the next group of companies that are coming up. And I just love to see it. And I think, it goes back to there seems to be a willingness to help each other.
Right.
And this feeling of when Atlanta grows, we all grow, and there's a really great, bed of talent here.
Right.
That I think has been cultivated through all the growth of these companies. And as the number of companies expands, that base continues to grow.
Right.
About 3 or 4 years ago, David Cummings put together a dinner. And at that dinner, there were about 10 of us, right? And it was, Calendly, SalesLoft, CallRail, QGenda, 10 emerging companies. And David started off that dinner saying, around this table, there's about, it's laughable now, right? But this was literally 3 or 4 years ago. There's about $1 billion of enterprise value, right, at this table now. Now, if you bring back those 10 people, it's literally about $20 billion of enterprise value.
Wow.
That around that table that that David brought together. You mentioned something about collaboration. That's what that did. Right. We saw each other. This was the first time. That was the first time I met Andy. Yeah. That was the first time I met. I know Tope from college, but that was the first time I met Andy. That was the first time I met Spet from Terminus. But that collaboration. I mean, the idea was you just help each other. Just talk to each other, right? And I had a lot of questions because at the time we were I believe we were like 30 people, 40 people at the time. So we were tiny. Right, and that is our mission now, right? That's my mission now, is to do events and talk to other people who had the same questions I did, because it's funny. My sister's a plastic surgeon, and I'm gonna land this plane. My sister's a plastic surgeon, and I remember talking to her and saying, "Wow, you're a plastic surgeon, and I used to help you with math when we were younger, right? What does it feel like?" And she goes, "George, I don't feel like I'm smarter than anyone else. You know, I don't feel like I'm the, you know, like in a room with other professionals, I'm just a regular person. But then when I talk to a layperson, I understand just how much I know, how things are just, you know, like, how don't you know that, right? I feel that way sometimes when I talk to other entrepreneurs. We've got so much knowledge based on our experience that, you know, spending 30 minutes with someone, because I was like that, right? Spending 30 minutes with someone that has been there, done that, can literally change the trajectory of their company, right? So that's my mission now, so to speak, is to help others.
Right. So we're about to wrap up here. So just maybe, you know, we have a lot of, you know, aspiring founders, you know, that I'm sure they'll be watching. So if there was like a one sentence piece of advice you would give them, what would it be?
Cold outreach still works. I respond to every single well-written, with a clear ask, cold email that I get. And like, I've used it, I'm sure you have, where it's like, doesn't matter whether you're the CEO of a Fortune 100 company or small guys like us, like, I'll still respond to a good cold email.
Good.
I'd say invest in great people. I think any success I think any of us have had has been the team that you were able to put together to do it. You can't do it by yourself. And surrounding yourself with just really talented folks, people that are better than yourself, which is easy for me, has been a key to success for me.
Excellent.
I'd say celebrate the small wins, right? You know, being an entrepreneur is a very lonely journey, and you know, whenever you get a demo, right, set a demo, don't wait until you close the deal. Celebrate that small win. Hey, someone actually is interested in my product, because that is the engine. Once you celebrate the small wins, you know, you just get this energy, right? This positivity that gets you to the next win, right? To the next milestone.
Right.
So.
Well, Dwayne, I love this.
It's amazing.
This is a great conversation.
Well, we want it.
And I love the cycle where we're at. So thanks to the three of you. Thanks for not just for being here, but for what you're doing, just for your companies and for the Atlanta innovation economy as well too. And for everybody else watching, just make sure you follow them. And these are the companies that are, you know, we're going to talk about these companies in the same breath. We talk about Coca-Cola and UPS and all these, and Delta and all these other great companies. Much more. You mentioned David Cummings as being a catalyst. We'll actually be having David Friday at A3C along with Paul Judge. These are two people who've really been catalysts in driving so many of the founders that we'll be talking to that are right here at Venture Atlanta. So we're going to continue streaming live from Venture Atlanta. We have Adam Walker coming up next, a full slate of people coming up for the rest of the day. So we're going to take a quick couple-minute break, and we'll be right back at you. All right.